share this from this podium and the opportunity that you have provided to us in order for a synopsis and a briefing on the Directorate of the Organ on Peace and Security, on politics, defense and security affairs at SADC Secretariat interventions in a plea to sustain a region which is peaceful, is stable, and can play a role in facilitating cooperation amongst member states, strengthening exchange of goods, movement of persons, and ultimately be able to attract investments not only from the region but also from the international community and our international cooperating partners. My name is Jorge Cardoso, as I was introduced by my colleague. I'm the director of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Affairs at SADC Secretariat. And I'm pleased to be here. And from the standpoint, I would like to emphasize that peace and security, as you all know, and stability as well, political stability in our region, is the cornerstone for the realization of this very important theme of this summit. To say that without a stable region, free of crime, free of elements which can disturb the stability of our member states, of our economies, and of our societies, of our communities, we are not going to be able to achieve greater levels of cooperation and integration amongst the economies and the countries of our region. But let me also, before I proceed further, just provide a summary of the goals and objectives of the organ. First and foremost, the cooperation on political issues, but also to assure that we remain a region which is stable, started many years ago. I would like to go back to the history a little bit and remember the role which our forefathers played in the liberation struggle, in which the United Republic of Tanzania was one of the active members by hosting here in Tanzania the Liberation Committee and many of the liberation movements from our member states, which by then were still occupied by either the form of colonialism or in a quest to eradicate the regime of the apartheid. So this is where really the sense of political solidarity emerged amongst our member states, and which still today guides us, to the extent that the frontline states were at the genesis of the creation of SADC, by then the Coordination Conference in 1980, and 12 years later in 1992, with the prospects of the independence or rather the prospects of the implementation of the multi-partidarism, and which led to the elections in South Africa in 1994, we have what we today is known as the SADC, being a community which has within its main objectives, of course, to strengthen the solidarity between member states, but also to eradicate poverty, while we also make sure that economic development and social development as well is a reality in our region. Dear members and colleagues, I think it's important always to go back to the history so that we understand where we're coming from, and we charter our course moving forward. The organ, as it is known, is an institution of the SADC. It was created in 1996, and it has got policies and frameworks which guides its operations. First and foremost, the Treaty of 1992, which have been amended, which stipulates the principles and objectives of which our member states decided to come together and create this community. Amongst others, the principles, I've alluded to them already, the principle of course, solidarity, political solidarity between member states, the principle of equal treatment or respect of sovereignty of our member states. Peaceful settlement of disputes is also one of the principles which guides the cooperation of our member states. Principles such as good governance, rule of law, and democracy are also enshrined in our mother charter. Based on that, in terms of what guides the operations of the organ, we have other policy frameworks such as the protocol on the organ on politics, defense and security cooperation. I hope my colleagues from the public relations unit have got some of these instruments to share with you, but they are also retrievable from our website, www.sadc.int. Most of these policies are available for the public, and I'm quite sure that your role also as a media fraternity is very important for you to take that information across our countries and citizens. We also have what is known as the Strategic Indicative Plan of the Organ, SIPO in short. This is where the strategies which the organization is aiming at achieving I would say reflected, and based on which we developed an implementation framework to facilitate the operationalization of this strategy. I've just provided a synopsis in terms of the policy framework. In terms of structures, dear members of the media, we have the chairperson of the organ, which currently is His Excellency President Edgar Chagwa Lungu from the Republic of Zambia. His tenure is coming to an end now with the current summit, which is taking place here in Dar es Salaam. And the next in the line is the Republic of Zimbabwe. President Mnangagwa will be the chairperson of the organ from the 18th of August for a period of a year. As a structure as well, we have a troika mechanism. A troika mechanism comprises 3 member states. Currently, of course, Zambia sits in the troika. The outgoing chairperson, the Republic of Angola, also is a member of the troika, as well as the incoming chairperson, in this case the Republic of Zimbabwe. They comprise this mechanism which is called the troika, which plays a very critical role by coming together and advise the chairperson of SADC which currently is the Republic of Namibia, His Excellency Dr. Aga Geingob, which was going to be replaced by the host. President Magufuli will become, as you know, the chairperson of SADC from the 17th of August. And it's also interesting and eventually important to note that we have actually two Troika mechanisms. Is the organ Troika mechanism and the SADC Troika mechanism, which, when it's required, these two Troikas come together to look into the matters pertaining to peace and security in our region. Eventually, later on, I can give a bit of a few examples of how these two mechanisms, the double Troika mechanism, plays a very important and vital role in looking at some of the matters which have to be part of the agenda and have to be addressed. We have also what is known the Ministerial Committee of the Organ. This committee brings ministers from foreign affairs of our member states, but also ministers responsible for security issues and defense issues. So the Minister of Defense, ministers responsible for state security issues, as well as the ministries responsible for home affairs and police. They come together at least once in a year to look into the matters pertaining to politics, defense, and security in our region. And currently, the chairperson of the Ministerial Committee of the Organ is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Zambia. We have two subcommittees which supports the Ministerial Committee of the Organ. One committee on politics and diplomacy, and the other one on defense and security matters, and of course the SADC Secretariat, which plays a vital role in facilitating meetings of member states, but also playing a role as an advisory to member states in matters pertaining to peace and security. The Directorate of the Organ, which I am leading for the past 5 years, comprises sectors, 5 sectors. The political sector, which looks into matters of politics and diplomacy. The defense sector, the state security sector, public security, and the police sector. So these 5 sectors are the ones which comprise the mechanism which is in place, as we know it to be the organ. And the main objective is to bring member states together and cooperate and collaborate, share information, and adopt strategies and initiatives, as I said initially, to make sure that we remain a peaceful region in order for the prospects of economic development and integration to be strengthened. In a nutshell, I would like to also share with you some of the key interventions of the Directorate during the past year, from 2018 up to where we are today. Let me start with the interventions in the Kingdom of Lesotho. You must be aware, because the United Republic of Tanzania chaired the organ in 2016 and 2017. Some of the matters, I'm sure colleagues you may recall, come from that time, and it was reported. In terms of the interventions in the Kingdom of Lesotho, during the period under review, we employed several mechanisms to support that country in attaining political stability and security. You may recall that in 2017, in September 2017, the then commander of the Lesotho Defense Forces was assassinated. and it sent the country in a very tension period, and there was need for the structures of the organ to intervene, basically the region, to lend support in making sure that the tension would not escalate to a full-fledged conflict. So in view of that, we deployed the SADC preventive mission to the Kingdom of Lesotho in 2017 for a period of a year. It was that mechanism comprising officers from the military, from the police, but also from the civilian component, were deployed from November 2017 up to December 2018 for a period of a year. And they played a critical role in supporting the de-escalation of tensions in the country, as well as through a process of capacity building of the Lesotho Defense Forces and security system to retrain in order for the forces to play a role which is expected under a civilian government. This was just one of them. We also have another mechanism to support Lesotho, which is the Oversight Committee, which was established in 2015. The main role of this Oversight Committee, which comprises member states of the Double Troika, representatives of member states from the Double Troika. The role is to, first and foremost, act as an early warning mechanism in case of potential signs of conflict, but also to support the reform process. You may also recall that the Kingdom of Lesotho has committed to embark on a wide reform process of its constitution, but also reforms in the public sector, security sector reforms in the parliamentary reforms. So that body was supposed also to provide some support and facilitation towards the implementation of such reforms. Let me also share with you, I'm sure you all remember, this body was chaired by, in 2016-2017, by the former Chief Justice of the United Republic of Tanzania, Justice Frederick Werema, which for a period of a year was the chair of the Oversight Committee, and during that period it was very instrumental in making sure that the commitments of the region were observed and were fully put behind the country and the stakeholders in Lesotho to make sure that the objectives of our support were fully materialized. In the DRC, the region has also been very instrumental in supporting the Democratic Republic of Congo during the period where there was a political accord, the San Sylvester Accord, which brought together all the stakeholders and paved the way for the conduct of general elections in 2018, as you all know, in December. In order for us to play the role which was expected, a liaison office was established in DRC to facilitate, of course, the coordination of the interventions by the region in that country. As we speak, this liaison officer is still there, and as you know, we also are present in the DRC through MONUSCO with the Force Intervention Brigade, which plays also a very significant role in stabilizing the security situation in the country, specifically in the Eastern DRC, where, as you know, colleagues, we have the presence of the negative forces in that region. As part of the FIB, the United Republic of Tanzania has also been playing a very important role as part of this contingent from the region. The United Republic of Tanzania has got troops on the ground, together with the Republic of South Africa as well as Malawi, operating under the framework of MONUSCO. We are all glad that the 2018 presidential elections in the DRC were conducted peacefully. You may all recall that there were quite a lot of concerns as to whether the elections would be conducted in an orderly manner and also in a peaceful manner. And at the end of the day, as a region, collectively, together with the resolve of the political stakeholders in the DRC, we all managed to be where we are. There is an elected president, the first peaceful transition of power in that country for long periods through elections, and hopefully in the next few days we will have established government as negotiations are ongoing between the political stakeholders for the formation of a government in that country. Those are aspects which, of course, we have to credit to SADC as well, as much as the Congolese people and their resolve to stabilize and have a stable country, which now have to, of course, to look into matters of economic development. In as much as instability is still present in the country, as I've indicated, with the presence of negative forces, but also the outbreak of the Ebola in that country. Allow me to quickly move to Madagascar. You may also recall that this country has been in the agenda of our region, of our organization, since the mid-2000s. But last year, the country was preparing for elections and was affected by pre-election conflicts. And SADC again was very instrumental in appointing former President Joaquim Chissano from the Republic of Mozambique to be the special envoy. And the President Chissano was deployed in many occasions to facilitate and mediate between political stakeholders, and which ultimately led to the organization of successful elections as well in October and December 2018, which saw the emergence of a new political dispensation with the President Rajoelina, and we wish all the best to the Madagascar as part and parcel of our organization. This is also testimony of a very important role that organization has played together with the African Union as well as the UN in a concerted effort to stabilize politically the country. This was done, and what we are witnessing gave us hopes that the Malagasy people will now embark on looking into the matters of economic development and poverty eradication as well. Another very important aspect which the region has been seized over the years is observing elections in our member states. Election observation has become a very important activity of the organ, also by my directorate, the directorate which I have the pleasure to lead together with my colleagues. It was a very busy year. It's still a busy year because we have had elections already, as you know, in Malawi as well as in South Africa during the month of May. And there's been also legislative elections, parliamentary elections in Madagascar as well in May. And during the last quarter of this year, we are still going to have elections in the Republic of Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, and Mauritius. So it's a very busy season for the organ and for the directorate of the organ in facilitating the deployment of election observation missions in our member states. Last year, we equally, I've referred to them, we equally deployed observation missions in Zimbabwe in July 2018, followed by the Kingdom of Eswatini, and then, of course, the DRC and the Republic of Madagascar. Dear colleagues, this is a very important exercise as we have adopted standard procedures guiding our member states to strengthen and consolidate democracy in our region. We have what we call the revised principles and guidelines governing democratic elections. Is a set of normative principles which our member states have committed to implement in order to strengthen the democratic governance. And the spirit of deploying observers in these processes is to first and foremost to serve as a peer exchange mechanism in which member states share experience in terms of best practices in conducting elections, as much as there will be specificities in our member states. And this is been working. Of course, we have got challenges here and there, but at the end of the day, we have seen very successful elections, as I've indicated, in Madagascar, in the DRC, successful elections as well in the Republic of South Africa, as well as in the Kingdom of Eswatini and Zimbabwe, notwithstanding a few challenges which, of course, are part and parcel of such political processes. Allow me to move on, colleagues. I don't know how much time I have left. I'm very passionate about these issues. I've got another 2 or 3 items to share with you. How much time do I have? 10 minutes still. Okay. Let me move on to another very important aspect, which brings us together, distinguished colleagues from the media. By a decision of summit last year in Namibia, the region started the commemoration of the Southern Africa Liberation Day. And the first year of celebration was in March 2019 in the Republic of Angola, in a town called Quitpanavale, in the province of Quadrubango. This is where in March, on the 23rd of March 1988, what is known to be one of the greatest conventional battles took place, where the then seeds of the eradication of the apartheid regime started. So, as a way of collectively celebrating this very important date, it has become a commemorative date for the region, and for the first time it was celebrated in the Republic of Angola, where some of the leaders of our organization, of our region, attended, together with the countries which played a significant role in the struggle for our liberation, and also in the outcomes of what was then known the Cuitucana Valley battle. Importantly, and to make sure that we don't forget where we're coming from, I started with that. There is a publication which is called the Ashimbita publication, which retracts the liberation struggle of our region. It's not by chance that this publication is named after one of beloved sons of this country, the late Brigadier General Ashimbita. He led the team of researchers from across the region, but also from all corners of the world, which played a significant role in achieving the liberation of our countries in the 80s. And this publication is there. We are in the process of translating it to the 3 SADC languages. Actually, the main version, the nine volumes of this publication, they're captured in their original languages. So you will find Portuguese, English, Russian, Spanish, even Kiswahili, and some other languages. But now we are now in the process of translating it into Portuguese as well as in French, to make sure that this history is known by all our citizens in our region. I've seen earlier these books being sold downstairs, and in recognition of the importance of the liberation struggle, our ministers of education have been tasked to look into the ways of including it in the syllabus of the curriculums of our schools in our member states, so that the history of our founding fathers remain perenne in the memories of the young generation and the future generation to come. In recognition of the role which our founding fathers have played in the liberation struggle, there is a mechanism which is being put in place to recognize our founding fathers, which it is called the mechanism to honor our founding fathers. And currently we are in the process of developing it, and eventually next year this will be concluded. But more importantly, colleagues, Summit has also decided to pay tribute and homage to the role played by one of his illustrious sons, also from this country, the late President Julius Nyerere. Statue is going to be is a matter which is being under preparation, and eventually we'll have a statue of former President Nyerere at the African Union, as a symbol of the role which not only Tanzania has played, but also this icon of the liberation struggle has played in the quest for us to become independent. Coming towards the end of my presentation, we have, as you know, the SADC Standby Force, which has attained full operational capability after the exercise, Amani Africa exercise, field training exercise in 2017. And the SADC Standby Force is, as it says, is an amalgamation of capacities from our member states. Each member state has pledged resources, equipment, and manpower to strengthen the ability and capability for the region to intervene in peace support operations. During the period of January to June 2019, we were on standby under the African Union, meaning that the region would be called to intervene in peace support operations. The roster ended in June, and as part of the strengthening of the capabilities of the standby force, we are also in the process of building what is known the logistics depot, which is located in the Republic, in Gaborone, Republic of Botswana, which is the capital of the Republic of Botswana. And this depot will gather the equipment and the material which will sustain the operations of the standby force. In April of this year, we have had the impact of climate change phenomena with the cyclones Kenneth and Idai, which had a very devastating impact, not only in terms of human lives, but also destruction of important infrastructure in our member states, countries which were affected, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Malawi. I also recall that certain areas here in Tanzania were also affected, fortunately without casualties, but also the Republic of Madagascar was also affected during this period. The devastating impact of these natural disasters are still being felt up to now, and we, according to the statistics available, more than 3 million people were affected in these countries, and over 1,000 people lost their lives, in as much as very important infrastructure supporting the health and education and even the administrative institutions in those member states were usually affected. And it is expected, we are now putting in place mechanisms at the regional level to assist member states to be better prepared to overcome the impact, but also to fully recover from these devastating phenomena. We have a regional strategy on preparedness and response to disasters, and there is also a fund which is being operationalized as part of the Regional Development Fund of SADC. But in specifically, colleagues, in addressing the suffering of communities out of these cyclones, the region intervened by providing financial support, $500,000 for these three countries, in as much as many of our member states also contributed with medical assistance, but also with the helicopters to rescue, to conduct search and rescue, and also with the Navy capabilities to do the same. So this is what, colleagues, I would like to share with you. This has been a very intense year since 2018, and I'm now at your convenience for questions which you may have. Thank you so much for your attention. Any questions? I see hands. Let me go to you first. Yes, please. If you can identify yourself, the media house you represent.
I'm Lucas from Shiwa Newsletter. In connection to your response to human disasters like the cyclones, how are you responding to disasters like outbreak of Ebola in DRC as SADC region?
I can perhaps let's have a set of 3 questions. The gentleman here in front, please.
My name is Martin Pereira from our newspaper on the issue of security in our region. Because there's a threat of terrorism, and the nations have never heard about it. For example, recently, about 10 Tanzanians were killed in the southern ladies in Uganda by people who penetrated in from Malawi. But there are also several instances of terrorism. So what is the strategy of what are the plans of SADC to counterattack terrorism in the region?
Thank you so much. Next question.
My name is representing Managed Communications Limited. My question is on democracy. There have been a wave of deterioration of democracy in most of African countries, including SADC country members. Most of opposition parties are lamenting the shrinking of democracy. So, what's the role of SADC? And how tough are you to combat this problem? Because you are there as a secretariat, but the shrinking of democracy is still all over the African countries.
May you please give us examples to further sustain your question? What do you mean by shrinking of democracy? If you can elaborate.
For example, if you say this is not a SADC issue, but it's an African Union Charter of Democracy, election, and governance. Tanzania and Botswana must be NATO of this charter. And yet they are claiming they are democratic countries. Not only that, but others as signatories, but they are not seen to practice democratic procedures. Even if we are doing some elections and whatsoever, but still there are a lot of claims from majority people, political parties, for democracy practice. What's your take?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. We were male-dominated interview or environment in terms of questions. So allow me to, yes, my sister, please. Please. Yeah, you can give the mic to the madam there. Okay.
My name is Madam Judy Kutina from Tanzania Commission Services. The question is, you told us about the Troika organ, mechanism, and SADC mechanism. To me, I get a problem a bit. I don't understand the science of these 2 organs. Seems to be one, but you mentioned that 2.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me start by this one, by the last one, and also as a courtesy to my sister. We have, as I've indicated earlier, we have a troika mechanism within the organ. The troika mechanism has got the objective of, first and foremost, enable institutional memory between the countries which are part of that mechanism. But the organ troika also plays a significant role in the sense that it can be triggered at any given time and when the needs arises. Meaning that we, as you know, we have the summit, which meets ordinarily once a year, but summit can also meet extraordinarily as much as it is required. But in the process of addressing critical issues which may have emerged in the region, the Troika is a response mechanism to engage quickly on the matter and advise the chairperson of SADC. Now, this is on the side of the organ, and the organ only deals with political issues, political matters. It's the organ on politics, defense, and security cooperation. But we have another mechanism in SADC, which is the Troika of SADC, which is responsible for the economic integration agenda. So these two mechanisms, in order for them to complement each other's roles, when it is required, they come together. So we have a Troika mechanism for the organ and a Troika mechanism for SADC. As I've said as well, in the organ Troika currently, it's Zambia, current chair, Angola, the outgoing chair, and Zimbabwe, the Republic of Zimbabwe, the incoming chair. In the SADC Troika, we have the Republic of Namibia, the current chair, the Republic of South Africa is the outgoing, no? The outgoing, South Africa, yes, South Africa, the outgoing chair, and the incoming chair of SADC, the United Republic of Tanzania. So these two troikas are important and complement each other in issues pertaining to the stability of the region, where it is required for greater consultation and coordination of the interventions to be taken. I hope I succeeded to explain. Now, the matter of Ebola. Sorry, I'm from Angola. I've not introduced myself. I'm from Angola, so English is not my first language. And my apologies if once in a while I do not pronounce correctly the words in English. But the Ebola outbreak is also in the agenda of the region. Our ministers of health have recently met to discuss ways on how to support the DRC, because at the end of the day, as you well know, and as it currently is proving, these are communicable diseases which, at the end of the day, they don't respect boundaries, and they're not confined only in one member country. And with the outbreak of the Ebola, devastating as it is, it requires a coordinated approach of our member states. So our ministers of health have come together and they have recommended specific ways on how to assist the DRC government. But this goes beyond the SADC intervention. As you know, the World Health Organization is also fully involved in supporting the government and the institutions combating this outbreak of this disease, as well as, of course, the DRC authorities very much involved. You may recall that recently the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo created a mechanism supervised by His Excellency to make sure that the interventions are implemented successfully to contain this outbreak. Terrorism in the region, yes, it's a reality. We have had in the past, here in Tanzania, manifestations of terrorism in the 90s. You may recall that. Of late, we were also having, as I've indicated earlier on in my intervention, the existence of negative forces, some of them adopting tactics of which we have seen in other latitudes, like in Syria and in Libya, of terrorism purposes and intentions as well, as much as targeting innocent civilians. The modus operandi being really resembling activities which we have witnessed in other latitudes in the African continent. But your specific example was in the case of in the northern Mozambique. And in order to address that, we have adopted a regional strategy to combat terrorism. The strategy has been in place since August 2015. There is an implementation plan, and our member states have been cooperating fully to make sure that the activities or terrorist activities are dealt with and eventually eradicated in our region. Democracy the concept of democracy, but its implementation it's really I would say meant to many interpretations and many readings. Democracy, of course, is one of our key tenets in the region. I have earlier on alluded to the principles which are enshrined in the treaty. I earlier on also alluded to some of the interventions which have been undertaking at the regional level to support our member states to strengthen the democracy and the rule of law, as well as the respect of human rights. I've indicated the role which we have been playing in supporting electoral processes in our member states. And as much as we may have specific challenges, but my understanding is that we are one of the one of the safest regions of the African continent, and one of the most democratic regions in terms of observing the principles of democracy. I thank you so much. Any further questions, colleagues? I see two hands. Yes, please.
If SADC election observation mission establishes that election in a certain country has not been conducted in accordance with the democratic principles which SADC has agreed, what happens?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Next question.
My name is Jorge from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the East African Cooperation. I have two questions. The first question is about the name of the directorate you are heading, because we have seen other directorates like infrastructure in the morning, industrial development. They are not organs, but yours is an organ. Why organs specifically for you? That's one. Two is about the strength of the SADC Standing Committee as compared to the National Defense Forces. I mean, how strong is the SADC Standby Committee as compared to the National Defense Forces? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions. Any more? Yes, please.
Okay. My name is Andrew Senchu. I'm working for Tanzania newspaper. Because in your region, I think you are facing narcotic drugs problem.
Excuse me?
Narcotic drugs.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Of course. And then this problem it was short and long-term aspects. It affects the workforce within our region. And I think it's a security issue. Now, it is said that they use the southeast coast, mainly in Mozambique, as a route to this region. What have you done to combat this problem?
Thank you so much for the questions. We, in the process of observing elections, we have, through the principles and guidelines, categorized or have ways of assessing how a particular member states have fared in conducting elections, whether the elections have been free, whether the elections have been peaceful, whether the elections have been credible, whether the elections have been transparent, and whether the elections have been credible. Those are the 5 criteria for assessing an electoral process. So as you can see, there is quite a lot of interfaces in an electoral process, which, as a cycle, and this is the one of the innovations which we have recently brought. We don't just, as a region, observe elections on the day of or when people are casting their votes. The electoral process observation starts pre the election day, way before, at least according to the guidelines, 90 days before the electoral process starts. We deploy what we call a goodwill mission, comprising our advisors on this, which is the SAC Electoral Advisory Council. It's a specialized body of experts which advise the chairperson of the organ on the readiness of a member state to conduct elections. And we observe the readiness of the country and preparations of the country in different aspects, whether the country is safe, whether there is security, the legislative framework. Even during the campaign, we also observe how the campaign is being freely conducted, whether the civil liberties of citizens is being respected, whether there is freedom of expression, freedom of association, and so on and so forth. And this is against this set of criteria which we assess how well or whatever challenges may have emerged out of the electoral process. And if you have taken note of some of our reports, because our reports are public, are presented for the members of the public, there are usually best practices which in the electoral process are of course observed, as much as challenges in these electoral processes. And we come up with the recommendations. We identify those areas where there have been challenges, and we come up with recommendations, which member states are, of course, expected to correct moving forward. And in order for us as a region to also to accompany that process, we also develop a post-electoral assessment mission to look into the aspects which were the shortcomings of the electoral process, and see ways and manners on how we can further strengthen that process at national level. Now, in terms of the SADC standby force vis-a-vis the National Defense Forces, earlier on, I hope I have indicated that member states have pledged the resources in terms of manpower, in terms of equipment, because the SADC standby force, it comprises the capabilities of our national defense forces, national defense and security forces. The United Republic of Tanzania has pledged a certain number of military officers, as well as in terms of the police, it's called for formed police units, as well as experts from the civilian component, because the standby force comprises the military, the police, and members of the civilian component. If we have to intervene in a particular conflict, of course we assess preliminarily what are the type of what are the requirements for the intervention. As I've alluded to earlier on, we have intervened with SAPMIL in the Kingdom of Lesotho, and it comprised this multi-dimensional intervention of the military, of the police, and the civilian component. In a nutshell, is to say that the SADC stand by force can only be strong as much as our national defense forces mechanism and structures are also strong. Because at the end of the day, we rely on the national structures, defense structures, forces to come together as a regional entity and intervene where it's required. I gave the example of the Force Intervention Brigade, which is currently deployed in the DRC. It comprises forces, national defense forces from United Republic of Tanzania, South Africa, and Malawi. So again, we'll be strong at regional level as much as we are strong at national level. And lastly, indeed, drug trafficking is also a matter of national security. And we have, through the public sector as well as the police, we have put in place a range of systems, processes, and mechanisms through our member states to combat the drug trafficking in our region. My colleague there, you cited one specific route, but there are many routes in our region which are used not only as channels to import drugs in the region, but also as a channels for drugs to reach even other continents, coming from South America, going to Europe, going to North America. We also know that we also have routes here in our region, not only in the one you mentioned. So we have also worked together with the other agencies, the International Police, Interpol. We have a memorandum of cooperation with Interpol, which implies regular exchange of information of the drug syndicates in our region. We also have a cooperation agreement with the United Nations Drug and Crime Agency, which is also very active in combating this crime. So we have put in place mechanisms through the public law enforcement structures in our member states to contain and eradicate the drug trafficking in the SADC region. Thank you so much. Finish? Are we done? Thank you so much, colleagues. Allow me just to inform you that we have prepared what was presented. It will be circulated by my colleagues from the Public Relations Unit.